Part 6. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 51. Hear the words. Xiao Suner blinked her beautiful big eyes, with a curious look on her face. She couldn't believe that this was what a guy with only a doshi cultivation level could say. If someone else said this, Xiao Suner might be despised in various ways. But if it was what Xian Chen said, then Xiao Suner would not only not despise it, but also look forward to it with great expectation. You must know that Xian Chen has already reached the level of Do Master at a young age, so his achievements in the future will be immeasurable. Xiao Yu, who was sitting on the side, was a little surprised when he heard this, but he did not complain. After all, the charm exuded by Xian Chen now was something that a young man could no longer possess. And Xiao Ning was also shocked by Suanken's unbridled words. Although this is a private room on the second floor, the sound insulation effect is not very good. At this moment, he had a trembling heart and excited hands. I'm afraid that someone nearby will come to look for trouble. After all, what Xian Chen said was not only aimed at someone, but also severely humiliated all the guys with great fighting master training present. Fourth brother, is that voice just now Suanken's? The eldest elder of the Xiao family asked Xiao Buobu, who was standing next to him, doubtfully. But Xiao Buobu knew how to pretend to be confused. After all, if he really admitted this kind of thing, it would also indirectly humiliate Xian Chen, his father. Of course, Yafei ignored the strange noises on the second floor. After smiling, she took out the jade plate containing 6 white jade bottles again. This time, the auction is divided into 2 bottles as a group, and each group is auctioned for a low price of 30,000. Those families who had not successfully bid for the foundation building spiritual liquid seemed to have their eyes glowing when they saw the 6 bottles that suddenly appeared. Although they all really want to get one of these 6 bottles of foundation building spiritual liquid. But now that they have reached this point, they are extremely clear-headed. These 6 bottles are 2 bottles in each group, and they are obviously prepared for the 3 major families in Wuyuan City. Even if they had the money to try and grab a wave, they had to bow their heads due to the power of the 3 tyrants in Wuyuan City. Unless these families don't want to live a stable life in Wuyuan City in the future, otherwise, they will definitely not make a price rashly. Feeling the gazes from the hall, Galibi also had a hint of pride on his face. 35,000 Galibi called out the price calmly, as if he was bound to get this foundation building spiritual liquid. Haha, since when did the 3 major families only ask for a price of 5,500? Can't you just learn from me? 40,000, Miss Yafei, give me the set of foundation building spirit liquid. Obapa mocked Galibi with a strange smile, and immediately shouted out the price, not forgetting to bid towards the auction. Yafei on the stage waved. Yafei's beautiful eyes trembled slightly, with an unhappy look on her face, and when she looked at Obapa's face, she felt a strange anger in her heart. However, due to the fact that the other party's status is relatively special in Wuyuan City, he apologized and said with a smile, I'm sorry, Chief Obapa, although Yafei really wants to give this group to you, but don't forget that there are auction rules. Even if it's you, it cannot be changed casually. Ha ha ha. Miss Yafei scolded you well. This old guy can't spit out ivory from his dog's mouth. It seems like he doesn't have any good intentions. Hearing Yafei's righteous words, Galibi glared at Obapa with cold eyes. So he raised his hand and shouted loudly, I, Galibi, have always liked to deal with people like this. Since Chief Obapa is interested in bidding, then I will pay 45,000. The price of 45,000 made Yafei lick her red lips and look at the two of them like those smooth fat sheep. I don't know how many people were fascinated by this scene, and they all looked at it with infatuated faces. Galio, who was sitting in the private room, noticed the change in Yafei's mood and couldn't help but shudder when he saw her licking her lips. Haha, don't be so proud, isn't it just 45,000? Oh papa, can still afford it, 53,000. Oh papa said coldly and raised the price by 8,000. Giolibi's face was extremely pale, but when he thought that there were still 4 bottles of foundation building spiritual liquid, he decided not to continue following. However, his expression was caught in the eyes of Opapa, and now he came with the attitude that he must succeed in the bidding. Therefore, the funds prepared are naturally extremely sufficient. Now is the time to compete for face. Of course, I am prepared to take this opportunity to severely kill the Gali family's spirit. What? Is Chief Giali scared by my price? Are you not as good as those guys in the hall? If that's the case, I don't think you should sit in the private room. You. Galabi's face turned red with anger. He originally thought that by letting go of the price this time, he could get a bargain in the next auction. However, when he did not realize that, he was severely humiliated by Opapa. And the people sitting in the hall looked at Galibi with complicated eyes. People who can sit in the private rooms on the second floor, in addition to their special status, are mostly wealthy. Now that the price was only 53,000, they saw that Galabi was ready to give up. Naturally, their faces were filled with contempt. Father, there is still some spare money in the family. Our Gali family will contribute 65,000. Galio was also standing at the door at the moment. Although he was a junior, it was not his turn to interrupt. But he couldn't stand the cold words and ridicule from Opapa. 65,000. I'll pay 73,000 gold coins. Opapa once again offered more than 8,000 gold coins. This time, Galio was just about to follow up on the price, but he was glared at by Galabi. 73,000. When the price of 73,000 was shouted out, everyone was excited. What is the number of 73,000? These people who are the helmsmen of the family naturally know very well. And after Opapa shouted out 73,000, he always felt that something was wrong. Galabi sneered, raised his hands to Opapa and said, Chief Oba is really wealthy. Since you want it so much, I will give this first group to you. If you don't have money, you don't have money. Why are you pretending? Opapa laughed jeeringly. Galabi was so angry that his face turned livid and his chest felt clogged. Xiao Zhan, who had never opened his mouth to bid, also remained silent. Although he also wants to participate, none of the 3 companies have really obtained it yet. So while minimizing expenses, Xiao Zhan was of course observing silently. I'll pay you 80,000 yuan, Galabi covered his heart, his lips turned black, it was obvious that he was about to have a heart attack. But this time, Opapa felt very happy when he saw Gali being so angry. With a slight curve in the corner of his mouth, Opapa said slowly, well, 80,000 gold coins, this is in line with the style of a big family. Since Brother Giali wants this foundation building spiritual liquid so much, then I will give it to you as if I am suffering a little loss. Puff. As soon as Opapa said these words, Galabi, who couldn't bear it anymore, was so angry that he sprayed blood from his mouth. Galio, who had been paying attention to Yafei, was frightened by this sudden situation. He hurriedly ran to Galabi's side to help him, and Galabi finally felt a little safer. Aor, now the auction has been successful, let's go get the foundation building spiritual liquid. Wait. Just when Galbib breathed a sigh of relief, Xiao Zhan, who had not opened his mouth to bid, suddenly focused the gathering on him again. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 52. Wait. This seemingly calm voice came very suddenly. And Gialibi, who had always been a sure winner in the past, looked at Xiao Zhan with resentment in his eyes. He couldn't believe that Xiao Zhan, who had never raised a price, would actually take action at this time. He was so angry that he was about to yell, but what Xiao Zhan said next made him stagger and almost fall down. Glancing at Jialiabai with a look of disdain, Xiao Zhan sneered coldly, haha, I didn't expect that the Jiali clan leader was so wealthy that he bought these 2 bottles of foundation building spiritual liquid for 80,000 yuan. Xiao, I admire you here. This sneer made all the families sitting in the hall tremble with fear. After all, although the relationship between the 3 major families is relatively harmonious on the surface, behind the scenes, they are all a group of people who like to do secretive things. Jiao Libi covered his chest, blood spilled from the corner of his mouth, and replied with a pale face, haha, Chief Xiao, please don't make such weird taunts here. I, Jiao Libi, succeeded in bidding based on my own strength. If Chief Xiao thinks he likes it, I will win the bid. You can continue to speak, I will not hesitate to speak. It's just that now I have successfully auctioned this foundation building spiritual liquid. If Patriarch Xiao really likes it, I think you should proceed with the next batch. What Jiao Libi said not only severely refuted Xiao Zhan, but also made him think that this group of foundation building spiritual liquid had already been pocketed. However, Xiao Zhan smiled coldly, with a hint of danger in the corner of his mouth. He looked at Galebai and his son walking to the auction stage, and shouted loudly, Miss Yafei, I remember you haven't made a final decision yet. Since there is no final decision, does this group of foundation building spiritual fluids temporarily no longer belong to the Jiali clan leader? Saying these words, Galibi, who was standing on the auction stage, was stunned. Although he bid for the set of foundation building spiritual liquid at a high price of 80,000 yuan. But at the end of the day, it's really about wanting to gain. It was still necessary for Yafei on the side to knock down the silver hammer to truly prove that he had successfully bid. It makes sense, Chief Xiao. Yafei blinked her beautiful eyes. She never thought that Xiao Zhan would suddenly say such words at this time. Although she really wanted to double the price of the set of foundation building liquid. But if that's the case, it will definitely anger Galebai around him. Even though the Mitre family has a special status in the Gamma Empire, if Galebai is really angered, the Mitre auction house in Wuyuan City will also be affected. Auction houses mainly focus on earning commissions, and offending distinguished customers is often something no auction house wants to see. Miss Yafei, do you really want Xiao Zhan to get involved again? Don't forget, logically speaking, this set of foundation building liquid should be mine. Galebai looked fierce. Although Yafei's figure is indeed good, for the old Jianghu Jiao Libi, he does not know what it means to cherish the beauty and cherish the jade. This threatening statement instantly silenced the entire buzzing hall. Haha. Yafei smiled awkwardly. When she looked up at the second floor, she noticed Xian Chen's always slightly thoughtful gaze. Then he covered his mouth and apologized, I'm sorry, Chief Jiali. Although Yafei really wants to announce the set of foundation building spirit liquid to you, the auction has auction rules. Without a final decision, anyone can do it. Let's continue bidding. In addition, please ask Chief Jiali to return to the second floor first, because only in this way can you prove that you respect your opponents. Intentionally or unintentionally, this made many small and medium-sized families extremely excited. After all, such words can really offend people. These small and medium-sized families were able to participate in the auction not because they lacked financial resources, but because they were afraid of the strength of the 3 big families. You must know that in Wuyuan City, the lowest level of the 3 major families is the 3 great fighting masters. Among these 3 major families, the most powerful is undoubtedly the Xiao family. Not only did the former genius boy regain the qualifications to practice, but he also unexpectedly got the young fighting master Xian Chen. Not to mention how talented Xiao Yan was in the past, the current fighting master Xian Chen alone is enough to crush all the younger generations in Wuyuan City. This infinitely beautiful Xian Chen is now sitting in the private room on the second floor. Although he has not appeared on the balcony, he has already made many young talents feel envious. Well said. Miss Yafei, Your words are deeply rooted in the hearts of the people. Obapa, who had not planned to participate, noticed that the families in the hall all had happy expressions, so he hurriedly spoke. And the look Ngalebai looked at Obapa was also full of resentment. Noticing the resentful look in his eyes, Obapa looked at Galebai and said provocatively, Galbi, since you are the leader of the three major families, you should take the lead. Otherwise, if everyone is like you, who would dare to attend the auction? You. Puff. Galbi sprayed blood mist on the spot, and he was unsteady on his feet. Even the clan leaders standing on the second floor were shocked. But the clan leaders in the hall all looked scared. Forget it, if you keep making him angry, I think he won't live long, so let's give it to him. Xiao Zhan said, pretending to be sorry, but he was so angry that Galebai rolled his eyes and fainted on the spot. Past. Dad witnessed Galebai fainting on the spot. Galio next to him immediately roared heartbreakingly. Oh, dear nephew, I see that your father is seriously injured internally, so you should help him go home. Obapa said hypocritically. Although he knew it was a lie, Galio hurriedly called his entourage to help lift it. But just when a group of them had just stepped off the auction stage, Opapa, who was standing on the second floor, pretended to shout loudly, Good nephew. Your father was injured like this just because of that group of foundation building spirits liquid. Don't forget to pay to pick up the goods, so that your father can feel at ease under Jiquan. Obapa. I may not be a human. But you are a real dog. Galio was young and energetic. When he looked up at Opapa, he was furious. However, Opapa looked at the other party with disdain, then turned around and walked back to his private room. Brother Xianchen, this Obapa is really capable. With just a few words, he made Galebai so angry that he was half dead. Sister Suner clicked her tongue and watched. After witnessing the whole scene, she couldn't help but feel a little pitiful for Galio. Haha, none of the three major families is fuel efficient. Now Galebai is so humiliated at this auction. Just watch, the battle between the three families will not be far away. Xianchen said with a bitter look on his face. Although he once looked down on Galio, in the final analysis, he was still a filial son. Both emotionally and logically, Opapa did go too far. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 53. Looking at Xianchen's affirmative expression, Suner smiled and chuckled. Brother Xianchen knows how to joke. Although the three major families are tacitly understanding each other, if they start a war rashly, there will definitely not be a good outcome for any of them. As soon as she finished speaking, Yafei, who was standing on the auction stage, naturally would not watch the auction go by in silence. Blinking her long eyelashes, she stretched out her hand and pushed out a set of 2 bottles of foundation building spiritual liquid. He noticed that the eyes of everyone in the hall were drawn to him again, and a faint voice reached the ears of everyone in the hall. Everyone, I think you will not be affected by the previous events, so the auction will continue. This set of prices has the same starting price as the previous set of prices. In order to ensure fairness and justice, even everyone in the hall can still participate. Yafei's words were just and fair, but they made those small and medium-sized families very happy. After all, if this is the case, they will have the opportunity to participate. Even if they really anger the other 2 big families, then miter auction will definitely help. In this way, families like them, although they are rich but not powerful, can naturally participate. Obapa, who was sitting in the private room, frowned slightly. A hard slap to the face. As for Yafei's words, she was undoubtedly borrowing the method he used to confront Galebai in order to shut herself up. Opapa stood up slightly as he wanted to say something, but he heard Xiao Zhan's fair words. Miss Yafei is right. You are all residents of Wuyutan City, so you naturally have the right to enjoy the same treatment as us. I think you all really want to get this foundation building spiritual liquid, so let's just rely on our abilities. Xiao Zhan's voice was heavy, and although it was mixed with dissatisfaction, he still acquiesced to Yafei's method. Those small and medium-sized families looked excited. If this happened, a genius disciple might appear in their families. Seeing the activity in the hall rising again, Yafei bent down slightly, which immediately made many young and energetic young people feel dry. Ahem, me. I'll pay 35,000, another young man suddenly raised the price, and he shouted the price emotionally. Although he knew that his price would soon be surpassed by the latter, if he could attract Yafei's attention at this time, it would definitely be worth it. You have the nerve to shout 35,000. My CAI family will pay 45,000, the young master from the CAI family immediately shouted out the price. Although he didn't know why he deliberately turned a ball on his finger, many young and thoughtful talents knew very well that the other party was deliberately trying to attract Yafei's attention to them. However, Yafei snorted and looked at the other party with contempt. Then she lightly opened her red lips and said softly, "Is there anyone better than this young master? You know, this time everyone can participate." Yafei deliberately bites everyone so hard that those families who were still hesitant became even more brave. I'll pay 50,000. Although it's only 5,000 more than the guy playing ball. But I just don't like him. That's right. I feel unhappy with him too. I'll pay 53,000. 58,000. 62,000. After the enthusiastic participation of everyone in these halls, the final price stopped at 87,000. This is 87,000. But it's much higher than the price shouted by Galebai before. At this price, those who participated in the auction frowned and chose to watch. The person who shouted out the price was an old man in yellow clothes. Ju heard that the old man in yellow was a big medicine merchant in Wuyutan City. He owned several medicine shops and was quite wealthy. Now that he is shouting out this price, he must be taking it for his children at home. And just when the old man in yellow shouted out 87,000, thinking that no one would add more, suddenly another price floated up. 95,000, my child is also in urgent need of this foundation building liquid. This is a middle-aged man with a bald head. Although he shouted out the price, his eyes were always on the second floor. After all, those guys on the second floor are the real rich people. Xiao Zhan glanced at Opapa, who was standing not far away, and said calmly, "Why doesn't Patriarch Oba not need this foundation building spiritual liquid? I remember that you seemed to have bid with Galebai before." Obapa's eyes twitched, and he grinned awkwardly and said, "Didn't Patriarch Xiao also not raise a price? I remember what you said earlier about everyone's demeanor. I, Xiao, think I can't compare to the leader of the Oba clan." Xiao Zhan's true and false words made the Oba clan leader slightly stunned, but when he reacted, his face turned livid. His cold eyes gave Xiao Zhan a hard look. Obapa was filled with anger, and he shouted loudly, "I will pay you 100,000. 100,000. After this 100,000, the guys in the hall had to be silenced. Now Opapa has taken action. If Opapa had not taken action, maybe they could still compete for it. Hey, Chief Obapa, I am Zhao San, who specializes in making and selling weapons in the city. Do you still remember that you purchased 100 fine steel swords from me?" This self-proclaimed Zhao San, who specializes in selling weapons, 3, making Obapa slightly confused. But when he reacted, he mocked with an extremely ugly face, "I was still wondering who it was, but it turns out it's you who monopolizes the sales of weapons in the entire Wuyutan city. Shut up. I get angry when I see you," Obapa roared angrily, causing the guy's neck to go cold, and he hurriedly sat down. But at this moment, Xiao Zhan, who was watching silently, said calmly, 120,000. This. Xiaozhan, Obapa's tiger body trembled. He did not expect that Xiaozhan would target him at this time. Xiaozhan glanced at the other party with disdain, obviously not taking the other party into his heart. Opapa was so angry that he was shaking all over, but he was still riding a tiger. Clan leader, this Xiao family has gone too far to bully others. Now that Galabai is lying down, if I make you angry again, wouldn't it prove that our two families are not as good as one Xiao family? The butler with small eyes who had an idea suddenly spoke. Obapa frowned and glanced at the other person, hesitated for a moment, and then shouted loudly, 150,000. Xiaozhan. If you add more, I, Obapa, will never follow you again. Ha Xiaozhan said slowly with an expression as if he was looking at a fool, I'm not as stupid as Patriarch Oba to spend 150,000 to buy 2 bottles of foundation building spiritual liquid, so you win. Puff. Opapa opened his eyes and listened in disbelief to Xiaozhan's words about spending 150,000 yuan to buy 2 bottles of foundation building spiritual liquid. There was a roar in his head, and he felt a little dizzy. Clan leader, even though it cost 150,000 yuan, it's still a fight, isn't it? The little-eyed butler obviously still didn't realize the seriousness of the situation. Then he fanned a lamp next to Opapa's ear and lit a fire. Opapa was so angry that he immediately yelled, "Go away," raised his hand and gave the opponent a very loud slap. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Baixiong. Chapter 54. Looking at Opapa's furious look. Xiaozhan was just about to continue taunting him, but when he saw Opapa giving him a fierce look, he deliberately turned his head and pretended not to see it. Obapa snorted coldly and walked to the auction table to receive the foundation building spiritual liquid that he had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on. He raised his head and took a sharp look at Xiaozhan, who was standing on the second floor, and then chose to leave gloomily. Yafei stood on the auction stage, her pretty face already blushing. Now that she has raised the price to such a high level, the commission is naturally extremely good. There was still the last group of foundation building spirit liquid left. He looked at Xiaozhan standing on the second floor. He originally wanted to kill him again, but he thought that the Xiao family was the only one left among the 3 major families. If you continue to think about the previous thing happening, it is obviously impossible. Is the system here? Although Xianchen was sitting in a private room, there were 2 beautiful girls beside him. But it still does not hinder the communication between him and the system. You're such a heartless man, do you think of me when you want to use it? Xianchen's mouth twitched. He felt that the system's response was strange. What's wrong, brother Xianchen? You seem to be out of shape. Xiao Suner noticed Suanken's change, frowned slightly, and asked. It's nothing, just a little boring, Xianchen said casually, then stretched out his hand to hug Xiao Suner in his arms. Xiaoning, who was sitting not far away and watching this scene, was about to take a bite of lemon, but he was stunned with a confused look on his face. In this delicate atmosphere, he was in a daze. When he realized what he was doing, the lemon in his hand had rolled to the ground. Brother Xianchen, you. Xiao Suner was startled by this sudden situation, but fortunately the light was dim, so she didn't take it to heart. But when she glanced at Yajian and noticed Xiao Ning not far away, she hurriedly took out the black robe from the ring and covered her front body to cover up. Well, I want to say, is there any way to deal with Xiaozhan? Is it the kind of treasure that deliberately raises its price? Xianchen communicates with the system in his mind, so there is no need to worry about accidents. After the system was silent for a moment, it then sent a message, okay, there is already a person in the hall who is dedicated to maliciously raising prices. Don't thank me, I'm busy. Busy? What can you do to keep busy? Xianchen complained in his heart, since the system is willing to help, then just sit back and watch the show silently. As expected, Xiao Zhan is now considered the most powerful tyrant in the field. Not only is he a great fighting master, but there are 4 great fighting masters standing beside him. These great fighting masters stood casually on the second floor, and immediately felt a numbing suffocation feeling all over their bodies. Haha, Xiao Zhan smiled lightly. Since the 2 of them have left now, why don't Miss Yafi give this last set of foundation building spirit liquid to me, Xiao? But don't worry, Miss Yafi, Xiao is willing to pay 60,000 gold coins. Although the price is not high, you will definitely not suffer a loss. Xiao Zhan's act of courtesy first and then fighting made concubine Ya on the auction stage flash a trace of contempt in her eyes. Although she really wanted to scold Xiao Zhan for being shameless, her identity was very special in Wuyuan City, so she could only focus on the hall, hoping to meet a hero who dared not bow to evil forces. However, although the clan leaders in the hall were full of ambition but not capable enough. Now, of the 2 major families that could fight against the Xiao family, one was so angry that he vomited blood and passed out, while the other was so angry that he left decisively. Although their families were rich, they had to remain silent when they looked at the 5 great fighting masters who exuded coercion from head to toe. Haha, it seems they don't need it anymore, so why not give it to me, Xiao? Xiao Zhan smiled proudly, then raised his feet to go downstairs. However, at this moment, a vicissitudes of voice suddenly sounded. Haha, when will a few great fighting masters be able to do evil? It's only 60,000 gold coins, and I can give you 80,000 gold coins. What? Everyone turned their heads and suddenly saw a lonely old man sitting in the last row of the hall. The old man had gray hair and a haggard face, as if he had experienced countless days and months. Xiao Zhan was slightly startled. He had never thought that someone would actually raise a price even after he had spoken so much. Old sir, please don't do this. I, Xiao, gave you 10,000 gold coins. How about you give it to me? Give 10,000 gold coins to quit for free? All the clan leaders in the hall looked surprised, but those who reacted immediately yelled. Xiao Zhan. Fortunately, you are still the reputable clan leader in Wuyuan City. You even asked for help. Wouldn't you blush if you do this? That's right. I was still thinking about how this situation suddenly happened in the quiet hall. It turned out to be Xiao Zhan's deliberate arrangement. Haha, this Xiao Zhan is so angry that he runs away one after another, and now he even asks for help so that he can legitimately take advantage of him. Bah! The most embarrassing one is undoubtedly the one with Xiao Zhan. I am afraid he is the biggest innocent person. With an angry expression, he exuded the coercion of a great fighting master on the spot. Some people with lower strength felt their chests were blocked and their heads felt dizzy. Clan Chief Xiao, if you do this, will you not take our middle family into consideration? Since someone is willing to bid, you can't use your position in Wuyuan City to deliberately embarrass others. Just when Xiao Zhan was furious, an old man walked out from behind the stage. When he walked to the auction stage, everyone realized that this person was Gu Ni, the second-grade alchemist from Mitre Auction. Now Gu Ni's appearance is equivalent to giving Yafei a reassurance. Xiao Zhan noticed Gu Ni and his expression changed slightly. He was not afraid of Gu Ni, but he was afraid of the Mitre family that Gu Ni mentioned. The middle family, in the entire Jiaji Empire, seems to have a connection with the Jiaji royal family. No matter how powerful the Xiao family is in Wuyuan City, it is not enough to declare war on a family that is inextricably linked to the Jiaji royal family. Although Xiao Zhan's face was ugly, he still withdrew his momentum, and the other elders also quietly withdrew and remained silent just like Xiao Zhan. Gu Ni nodded, and then said to everyone in the hall, I saw everything clearly from behind just now. The auction is fair, and everyone can bid together. If you encounter someone who deliberately makes things difficult for you, you can report it to our middle auction, and our middle auction will deal with it by blacklisting the person. Gu Ni's words can be said to be well-intentioned. It must be said that his move killed the goose and took the egg, which immediately made many bidders feel what true fairness is. But the old man sitting at the end suddenly sneered. This sinister laughter made even the second-grade alchemist Gu Ni feel an unprecedented doubt. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 55. Isn't this old man a lunatic? Why is he laughing so well? The key is to forget about laughing, but you still laugh so scary. Everyone present was shocked. The old man's sudden laughter showed mixed emotions. The old man's mouth curved upwards, and he said calmly, "Why doesn't Patriarch Xiao dare to follow even though he has 80,000 gold coins? I remember that Patriarch Obapa paid a full 150,000 gold coins. This weird sound, if it weren't for Gu Ni, he would be standing on the auction stage. I'm afraid Xiao Zhan has already taken action first and taught this disrespectful guy a lesson." This old man didn't say anything because he was disrespectful, and even his tone was extremely vicious. "Clan leader, is this old guy planning to trick you? Or forget it, we can't knowingly jump into it knowing it's a trap." The second elder of the Xiao family is good at experiencing family business, so he naturally knows that making money is not easy. If so much money was spent in vain just because of talking and laughing, it would be a big expense for the Xiao family. Xiao Zhan's face looked a little ugly, and he hesitated for a moment as he was riding a tiger. But I noticed that some of the expressions on the guys in the hall were happy. Xiao Zhan immediately called out the price and raised the price to 100,000 gold coins. Of course, Xiao Zhan was not stupid. A sneer appeared at the corner of his mouth. He looked at the old man and said mockingly, "Old sir, although I don't know where you are from, if you continue to pursue the price, I, Xiao Zhan, can guarantee that you will never do it again." And this tough voice surprised all the bidders in the hall. After all, it was really possible for Xiao Zhan to do that. And some people also reacted. This situation does not look fake at all. The old man ignored Xiao Zhan, raised his eyes to look at Yafei who was standing on the auction stage, and then said calmly, "Miss Yafei, I'm offering 110,000. I can't be afraid just because the other party is strong." "Ha, he. Yafei smiled awkwardly. Although she didn't know what to say, she just wanted to look at her honestly. Xian Chen walked out of the private room and walked towards Xiao Zhan and the others. The moment Xian Chen appeared, the eyes of everyone present seemed to radiate light. Of course, some people who have seen Xian Chen are not too surprised, but some guys who have never seen him and only heard about him have a shocked expression. Looking at the ripples of Xian Chen's fighting spirit, isn't this the unique momentum of a fighting master? I didn't expect him to be Xian Chen, but it's true that people cannot be judged by their appearance, nor can they be measured by the sea. You have reached the level of fighting master at such a young age, tisk, tisk. If those sect colleges knew about this kind of talent, they would definitely rush for it. Sigh, I really don't know what to say except envy. Xiao Butong looked at Xian Chen in confusion, frowned and asked, "Chen, why did you come out?" "Father, I don't think that old man is a good person. We can't give up just because the other party deliberately makes things difficult. After all, everyone is fighting for a breath." Xian Chen's sudden words made everyone stunned. If this isn't a scam, what else could it be? How can you kids say such a thing? Xiao Buobu's face turned red with embarrassment. Xiao Ning and others on the other side also came out at the same time. Xiao Ning came to the elder and said pitifully, "Grandpa, just bid." The great elder looked embarrassed, and Xiao Zhan was silent. After sighing, Xiao Zhan said to Yafei, "Miss Yafei, I will pay 130,000. Although the voice of 130,000 yuan was full of reluctance, it at least proved that Xiao Zhan had now called out the price. If Xiao Yan were here at this moment, he would definitely be in a complicated mood. Although it was said that he consigned the foundation building spirit liquid at the Mitre auction house. But if he knew that his father was being led by someone else, he would probably be so angry that he would become incoherent. 150,000. The old man's slow voice sounded again. Xian Chen looked at the old man calling out the price. Although he looked heavy on the outside, he was happy in his heart. 160,000. Xiao Zhan said word by word, so loudly that his whole body trembled with anger. He wanted to push the old man to the ground and beat him violently, but there was nothing he could do. If you really want to cause trouble for the other party, I'm afraid you can only wait until you leave the auction. Haha, Patriarch Xiao is so proud, I'll give it to you. The old man's sudden words made Xiao Zhan feel like he had seen him before. This feeling of knowing that he was being cheated but having no choice but to do anything was deeply felt by Xiao Zhan. Noticing that the old man stood up and left, Xiao Zhan hurriedly said to the two elders, "Take that old man to the Xiao family for me. I must find out his details." A high price of 160,000. Xiao Zhan, who originally wanted to fish in troubled waters, turned out to be the biggest victim today. The expressions of the people in those halls were also extremely exciting, and they all began to wonder whether the old man was arranged by Obapa or Galabai. The two elders immediately walked down the stairs, obviously preparing to cause trouble for the old man. Xiao Zhan received the foundation building spiritual fluid worth 160,000 yuan with a dark expression. Looking at these two bottles of foundation building spiritual liquid, he really wanted to smash them all. But thinking that it was worth 160,000 yuan after all, I could only hold back my anger and honestly pay the money to pick up the goods. As Yafei played with her fingers, and then knocked down the small hammer, these two sets of foundation building spirit fluids were truly successfully bid by Xiao Zhan. Those families who failed to bid successfully looked at this scene. Not only did they not have any regrets, but they were all in great spirits. For these people, although they did not successfully bid for the foundation building spiritual liquid, they were able to witness with their own eyes the three major families being pinned to the chopping board and being slaughtered wantonly. For people like them, rather than succeeding in the bidding, they would rather see these self-righteous guys severely punished. Damn! I was tricked by an old man. Xiao Zhan paid the auction fee of 150,000 yuan and joined the other elders with an extremely ugly expression. The elders looked at each other. Although they wanted to say something, in this situation, it was best for them to remain silent. "Chen'er, you, Miss Suner and the others should go back first." Xiao Butong coughed awkwardly, then waved to Xian Chen and the others to go ahead. Before Xian Chen could answer, Xiao Yu had already moved her long, round legs and passed by Xian Chen. Xian Chen frowned and looked at Xiao Yu's back, looking from top to bottom. "Let's go, brother Xian Chen. Now that the auction is over, staying here is a waste of time." Xiao Suner held Suankan's hand. This silent little movement was clearly visible to the elders. Although Xiao Butong was a little embarrassed, after all, he would have to face this kind of thing sooner or later. Not long after, Xiao Zhan and his party arrived at the door of the auction house. The two elders and the third elder who had gone after the old man came back with livid faces. "Second brother and third brother? How are you? Have you caught them?" Xiao Zhan saw their faces turned pale. Although he didn't want to believe that the old man had run away, he still asked tentatively. The second elder sighed deeply and explained with great embarrassment, "Oh, I thought I was going to catch him, but after the old guy entered an alley, he suddenly turned into a gust of evil wind and disappeared. If the two of us hadn't reacted quickly, I'm afraid we would all be lying on the ground now." Xiao Zhan was shocked by the other party's words. If it was true as the second elder said, then wouldn't the cultivation level of the old man who deliberately made things difficult be much higher than those of them? You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 56. After leaving Mitre auction, looking at Xiao Yu and Xiao Ning walking far in front, Xiao Suner licked her lips and whispered to Xian Chen beside her, "Brother Xian Chen, why don't you go find your sweetheart Yafei, miss? You know, now that the auction is over, it is the best time to meet Miss Na Yafei." Looking at the smiling sister Suner, Xian Chen immediately raised his hand to lift her snow-white chin and said with a smile, "Sister Suner, it's better not to make such a joke. Although Yafei is indeed good-looking, don't forget that she is much older than me after all. Haha, don't some women just like young and vigorous guys like brother Xian Chen?" Suner raised her rosy mouth and said with a half-smile. Xian Chen coughed awkwardly. He was finally convinced by Xiao Suner's logic. However, at this moment, when the two of them just walked out of the waiting room door, they saw a strange figure wearing a big black cloak. The figure in the big black cloak was obviously walking hastily. Xian Chen frowned slightly and looked in another direction. Isn't that the senior members of the Xiao family? What's wrong with brother Xian Chen? Xiao Suner followed Suanken's gaze and looked over. When she noticed that the figure wearing a big black cloak was approaching, a hint of surprise flashed through Sister Suner's supposedly good mood. Isn't this Xiao Yan? Why is he dressed like this? Xiao Suner asked in confusion. But Xian Chen sneered and said, although this guy didn't participate in the auction, he came here at this time. It's obvious that he has something fishy involved. If my guess is correct, he is going to the waiting room of the middle auction. Although I don't know the other party's purpose, but the other party's behavior is suspicious, I think I should tell the clan leader and others. A dangerous arc appeared at the corner of Xian Chen's mouth. He naturally knew that the guy in the big black cloak was Xiao Yan. If he hadn't broken up with Xiao Yan at the beginning, maybe Xian Chen would have considered covering up for him. But it was different now. Not only was his relationship with Xiao Yan incompatible, but they had already regarded each other as their number one enemy. "Chener, why haven't you returned home yet?" While Xian Chen and Xiao Suner were talking, Xiao Buobu noticed the situation here and walked over. Seeing the close relationship between Xiao Suner and Xian Chen, Xiao Buobu Tong was extremely pleased. Although he knows Xiao Suner's true background, his son is not bad at talent now. Even though this possibility is very unrealistic, Xiao Buobu Tong is still willing to take a gamble for Xian Chen. I hope I can get the favor of the adult behind Xiao Suner. Uncle Xiao Suner's sweet voice made Xiao Buobu's bones seem to melt. Xiao Butong nodded repeatedly, but when he saw that Xian Chen's eyes were always on the figure in the big black cloak, he asked doubtfully, "What's wrong with Chener? Are you suspecting that the guy in the cloak is suspicious?" "Haha, father, it's not that I'm suspicious, but Chener feels that the guy who appears at this time must be closely related to the foundation building spiritual liquid. Now that our Xiao family has spent such a high price to auction the foundation building spiritual liquid, maybe we can meet the other party." Well, Xiao Butong was in a daze. Although he couldn't understand why Xian Chen suddenly said this, he felt that what Xian Chen said was not unreasonable. I also think what brother Xian Chen said is not unreasonable. If uncle is interested, maybe we can ask the clan leader and others to come over and have a look. Xiao Suner turned around, her delicate white hands behind her back. She leaned forward slightly, her beautiful big watery eyes curved into beautiful crescent moons, with a smile in them, and shallow dimples appeared on her pretty little face, which was instantly cute. "Well, if that's the case, then as a father, you should go and talk to the clan leader." Xiao Butong exhaled a filthy breath. So he walked quickly to Xiao Zhan and others. After what he said, those guys' faces showed surprise. As they came quickly, Xiao Zhan was the most excited and hurriedly asked Xian Chen, Xian Chen, Do you really think that the guy in the black cloak is the master who consigns the foundation building spiritual liquid? I don't know, but if Patriarch Xiao misses it at this time, I think you will regret it for the rest of your life. A sunny smile appeared on Suankin's face. Looking at the big boy in his eyes, Xiao Zhan thought of his own Xiao Yan and finally realized why Xiao Suner suddenly chose to be with Xian Chen. He sighed heavily. Xiao Zhan immediately waved his hand. Let's go. Go in and see who the other party is. In the waiting room, the guy in the black cloak sat on the chair, picked up the teacup on the table and took a sip. The girl standing next to him glanced at the other party timidly. Xiao Yan put the teacup on the table, lowered his head and said nothing, but an old voice came out. What? I've been here for so long, why don't Miss Yafei still want to show up? Don't forget, that foundation building spiritual liquid is on consignment from me. Is it possible that your middle auction intends to keep it all to yourself? The girl was startled by the sudden sound. Looking at the guy covered in a big black cloak, the girl squeezed her hands together tightly, her face turned slightly pale, and she said uneasily, No, 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 sir, you misunderstood. The auction has just ended, and Miss Yafei is handling its procedures, so let me wait on you first. Asking you to serve the Lord? You are such a stinky little girl, but I can't arouse the slightest interest in you. This cold voice naturally came from Yao Lao. If Yao Lao hadn't been assisting him, Xiao Yan would have been spotted by others long ago. When the girl heard the other party's cold words, she was so angry that her face turned red. However, due to her special status, she had no choice but to swallow her anger and stood silently aside without speaking. Not long after, I saw a woman with a hot figure walking slowly into the waiting room. Because Xiao Yan was wearing a mask, he could clearly see Yafei's plump figure from inside the mask. Looking at her water snake waist swaying, it seems to be releasing a seductive aura. The young and energetic Xiao Yan had a reaction instantly. Haha, the guest came really early. I wonder if my maid is satisfied with the guest. Yafei smiled at him, her smile was so charming, but it made Xiao Yan under the mask feel in a daze. Haha, apart from being a serious girl, this maid seems to be incomparable to Miss Yafei in every aspect, right? Besides, I'm getting older. Isn't it humiliating me to let me pamper such a stinky little girl? Yao Lao's cold voice not only did not disgust Yafei, but her narrow beautiful eyes curved in a beautiful arc. Haha, the old gentleman is indeed an expert. Nowadays, you can still meet people like the old gentleman who pretend to be noble, but there are really not many of them anymore. Just when Yao Lao had just finished quarreling with Yafei and was about to say something more, he suddenly heard a very hearty laughter coming from the door of the waiting room. Xiao Yan was so frightened by the voice that he trembled and turned his head hastily. When he saw the other party's true appearance, he was so frightened that he broke out in cold sweat. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 57. Haha, I didn't expect to meet the master who consigned the foundation building spiritual liquid. Chen's eyes are really poisonous. Xiao Butong's admiring voice came next. Through the mask, Xiao Yan noticed that Xian Chen and Xiao Suner walked into the waiting room at the same time. His handsome face instantly became extremely livid. But fortunately, there is a mask to cover it, otherwise, it is really possible for everyone to see through it immediately. When Yafei saw everyone in the Xiao family and her eyes fell on Xian Chen, the smile on her face became extremely real. If there weren't so many people out there, I'm afraid Yafei would have thrown herself into Xian Chen's arms. Although Xian Chen is only 17 years old, he is much taller than Yafei. Xiao Suner, who was beside her, noticed the change in Yafei's expression, and then deliberately held Xian Chen's hand, and said with a smile to Xiao Buletin, Uncle is right, brother Xian Chen's eyes are indeed poisonous, otherwise, it will be like that again. How is it possible to be like so easily? Everyone present looked bitter. Xiao Zhan was so embarrassed that this person was once very likely to become his daughter-in-law. Now, because of the appearance of Xian Chen, everything has changed. Yafei pursed her red lips and smiled softly, and said sweetly, I wonder what happened to your sudden visit. Now is the time for our middle auction to receive guests, so if nothing happens, I hope you can leave. Yafei blinked her beautiful eyes. Although she said so, her eyes were always on Xian Chen. Being stared at by Yafei like this, no matter how stable Xian Chen's character is, he has to be affected at this moment. After all, the original scene is still lingering in my mind. Haha, don't get me wrong, Miss Yafei, we just want to visit this master, Xiao Zhan said cheerfully. So he walked quickly to Xiao Yan, who was wearing a black cloak. When Yafei looked confused, she suddenly saw Xiao Zhan, the leader of the clan, bending down and saluting the old man with his fists in his hands. Thank you, master, for the foundation building spiritual liquid. Without the master's foundation building spiritual liquid, my son would not have been able to make a splash at the coming of age ceremony. Xiao Zhan's tone was full of gratitude. But Xiao Yan, who was inside the black cloak, was extremely embarrassed. After all, the person who bent over and saluted him was his father Xiao Zhan. When an elder gives a gift to a younger person, according to etiquette, the younger person's life will be shortened. I'm not familiar with you. As for the foundation building spiritual liquid, it's all because I've been short of money recently. So there is no need to thank you or not. After all, you spent a lot of money to buy it. Xiao Yan could not directly answer Xiao Yan's gratitude, but Yao Lao was very different. He was not only Xiao Yan's master, but also brought Xiao Yan opportunities that his peers could not enjoy. Now that he saw Xiao Zhan saluting Xiao Yan, although it was not a salute to him, Yao Lao still felt some appreciation for Xiao Zhan in his heart. Haha, Patriarch Xiao, you are really a sweetheart. Yafei's narrow beautiful eyes curved in a beautiful arc. Yafei smiled, and her tender voice made Xiao, who was hiding under the big black cloak, I just feel a numbness all over my body. Looking up at Yafei's opening, Xiao Zhan squeezed out a smile on his face, and then smiled at the expert and said, haha, the old gentleman really knows how to joke. That foundation building spirit liquid is not an ordinary thing. Since the old gentleman he must be an alchemist who refined the foundation building spiritual liquid, right? I just don't know where the old gentleman is going. If you don't have a place to go, why not go to my Xiao mansion to stay for a few days, and then I can lead the dog to thank you in public. Xiao Yan, who was hiding in a black cloak, was frightened and broke into a cold sweat when he heard Xiao Zhan's words. If Xiao Zhan knew that the man behind the scenes was his biological son, I am afraid that even any father would not be able to accept this situation normally. The Yao Lao hidden in the ring frowned. If he really agreed to Xiao Zhan's invitation, he would undoubtedly be shooting himself in the foot. After coughing dryly, Yao Lao declined politely. Clan Chief Xiao, you're welcome. I have always yearned for freedom, so I accept Patriarch Xiao's invitation. This tactful rejection made Xiao Zhan's face look a little embarrassed. But the old man in a black cloak obviously didn't intend to let others see his true face. So Xiao Zhan waved his hands very wisely and was ready to leave. Slow. Yao Lao's old voice came from within the black cloak. Upon hearing this, Xiao Zhan hurriedly turned around and looked at the old man who had already stood up. Xiao Zhan was just about to ask, but was shocked by what the old man said next. Although the foundation building spiritual liquid is only useful for people below the level of fighter. But I have also heard about your noble master's deeds. To be able to continuously improve one's strength over such a period of time must be an extraordinary talent. How about this? When I am free one day, I don't need to invite Chief Xiao. I will naturally come to visit you in person. Maybe your son will have a chance to become an alchemist who can make medicine. Somewhat shocked by the meaning of the sentence, Xiao Zhan didn't seem to react in time. Congratulations to the clan leader, it seems that this old gentleman is interested in Xiao Yan. Ha ha ha. If this happens, won't our Xiao family have another genius? The elders laughed heartily, as if they were going crazy because the Xiao family was about to welcome an alchemist. Xiao Butong silently watched the scene unfold, looked at Xian Chen beside him, frowned slightly, then stepped forward and spoke respectfully to the expert. The old man doesn't know how to judge my son's talent? If possible, I also hope that the old man can give my son a chance. Xiao Butong's sudden request shocked everyone. As the clan leader, Xiao Zhan, of course, turned pale when he saw that Xiao Butong dared to steal Yanner's opportunity in front of so many people, and he wanted to curse immediately. Well, I have to say that your son's talent is indeed good, and he is indeed a good prospect. It's just that you should be the elder of the Xiao family, right? I remember that according to the order of dignity, it seems that you are not qualified to talk to me. So no matter how talented your son is, but I have already agreed with Patriarch Xiao to meet his son in the future. So although your son is very talented, I feel a steady stream of murderous aura in him. As a father, you must discipline them carefully. Otherwise, if something unexpected happens, it will not only be a loss for the Xiao family, but also for you. Yao Lao's heavy voice made Xiao Butong, who had been greeting him with a smile, stand on the spot like a bolt from the blue. Xiao Butong looked puzzled. He never thought that his gifted son would be evaluated like this. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 58. Xian Chen stood next to Xiao Butong. The whole time, I listened quietly to the old man's warnings. If it were someone else, maybe Xian Chen would accept it happily. But you must be clear, the guy in the black cloak is Xiao Yan, who Xian Chen regards as his enemy. And that voice full of vicissitudes of life came from Xiao Yan's current teacher, Yao Lao. Now that the enemies met, since Xiao Yan and the others were the first to attack, Xian Chen no longer had to hide them. He walked around from the surprised Xiao Buobu to the guy in the black cloak. Xian Chen, must not be rude to the master. Xiao Zhan still had a good impression of Xian Chen, but now he was reminded by the old man. He also instantly felt Xian Chen's sudden appearance. Not only is it not a blessing for their Xiao family, but it is a disaster that can flood their Xiao family at any time. Xiao Yan stared at Xian Chen through the mask, for fear that the other party would do something detrimental to him at this time. After all, if it were exposed at this time, it would definitely be a very difficult thing to explain to Xiao Yan. Haha, why little baby? I kindly warned your elders, are you ready to scold me for meddling in other people's business? Yao Lao's joking laughter made all the elders around him look extremely ugly. As for Xian Chen's father, Xiao Buobu was so angry that he wanted to hold the old man's neck and scold him fiercely. However, Xiao Zhan had a calm expression on his face. If it weren't for Xian Chen's sudden appearance, his son would have become the brightest star of the Xiao family. As for Xiao Sun'er, it was natural that she would become his daughter-in-law. You old dog talks so much. One moment he said that I am gifted and a genius, and the next moment he said that I have murderous eyes and will bring harm to the Xiao family in the future. What's the matter? You've told me all the good and bad things. Do you really think that I can't cure you if you hide under this black cloak? Xiao Yan. Xiao Yan? You said he is Xiao Yan, impossible, right? Yafi looked at the old man blankly, with her arms folded in front of her, a pretty face full of complexity. Xiao Sun'er on the other side also frowned, although Xiao Yan no longer had anything to do with her. But he was also extremely interested in Xiao Yan being able to sell such treasures as foundation-building spiritual liquid at Mitre auction. When Xiao Zhan heard this, he swallowed with trembling heart, looked at Xian Chen, and gradually became angry. Xian Chen. Although you have a problem with my son, if you open your mouth and talk nonsense like this, do you really not have eyes for me, the leader of the clan. Xiao Zhan was furious, and the aura unique to the great Do Master erupted. Xiao Butong, who is eager to protect his son, naturally cannot be willing to watch his precious son being bullied. The pressure of the great Do Master also burst out, and he immediately ducked in front of Xian Chen. Looking at Xiao Butong's back, Xian Chen's mood was extremely complicated. This cheap old man of mine is really eager to protect his son. Warmth filled his heart, and just when he saw that a fight was about to break out, Gu Ni, who had been paying attention secretly, gently opened a door and walked out. Gu Ni's cultivation is naturally not comparable to that of these great fighting masters. Just by showing off their momentum, Xiao Zhan and Xiao Buobu immediately felt an unprecedented sense of oppression. The middle auction has the rules of the middle auction, even if you are the patriarch and elder of the Xiao family. But as long as you come to my mitre auction, no matter you are a dragon or a tiger, you must lie down for me. Looking at Gu Ni, Xian Chen, who frowned slightly, wanted to say something, but he noticed the hint in Gu Ni's eyes. Xian Chen, who did not continue to speak, chose to stand aside silently. If you really start a conflict with Xiao Yan now, you must not only think about yourself, but also think about your cheap dad. In a matter of seconds, Gu Ni had already arrived in front of Xiao Yan, who was standing up. Looking the other person up and down, Gu Ni immediately revealed a dangerous smile. Since Sir said that Xian Chen is a scourge to the Xiao family, why not reveal his true face, so that Xian Chen can give up? But sir, please don't get me wrong, Gu Ni does not think that the Xiao Yan Mr. Xian Chen said is you. But I think everyone here should want to find out. Xiao Yan's face gradually turned ugly. What Gu Ni said was obviously to help Xian Chen out of trouble. Xiao Zhan dares to be angry but dare not speak. Although he really wanted to fight Gu Ni, because Gu Ni's strength was indeed special, even if Xiao Zhan attacked wholeheartedly, the result might still be that Xiao Zhan was seriously injured. Haha, you seem to be at war with each other, but in fact you just want to see my true face. The voice full of vicissitudes of life came out in response, and then the mask was taken off by the other party's messenger. But when everyone saw the other party's true appearance, they were all so shocked that they couldn't say a word. The man's face looked like there were many small holes in it. This extremely ugly face made Yafei and Xiao Suner cover their mouths, as if they would vomit in the next second. Gu Ni also didn't expect that there would be such an ugly guy under the mask. The look he looked at Xian Chen was also full of helplessness. Xian Chen took a deep breath. He did not expect that Yao Lao would replace his true appearance on Xiao Yan's face at this time. Haha, now that I've seen my true appearance, kid, aren't you going to apologize to me? Yao Lao seemed not to be angry at being seen in his true form, but asked Xian Chen very calmly if he was willing to admit his mistake. This time he shot himself in the foot. Xian Chen, who was so angry, felt that he was completely convinced. This Yao Lao did not hesitate to expose his true face for Xiao Yan. I have to say how much this Yao Lao values Xiao Yan. Haha, this junior said something wrong before, so he will naturally apologize. But don't get me wrong, old man. The person I am apologizing to is just you. I hope you can understand. Xian Chen's words contained some meaning, which made the people around him confused. Yao Lao did not continue to embarrass himself too much, but continued to preach to Xiao Zhan, Chief Xiao, I also deeply apologize for my recklessness in the past. But despite this, I still need to warn you, there is no room for two tigers in one mountain, and I forget that Patriarch Xiao can think twice. Is there no room for two tigers in one mountain? Xiao Zhan nodded silently. He was speechless and had no choice but to wave and lead his family members away. Xiao Suner noticed Yafei's flirtatious eyes towards Xian Chen, so she deliberately took Xian Chen's arm and said sweetly, let's go, brother Xian Chen, let's not disturb Aunt Yafei's work. Ah, Auntie. Yafei's beautiful face turned red and blue when she was angry. If Gu and I hadn't pulled her arm hard, I'm afraid Yafei would have rushed in front of Xiao Suner and violently tore open Xiao Suner's mouth that seemed to have been opened. You are listening to Novels at Bless Up channel. Wish you happiness and luck. Please subscribe to receive new novels. How do you feel about this novel? Please like and leave a comment. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 59. After leaving middle auction. Because Xiao Suner was worried that Xian Chen would ask Xiao Zhan for an explanation, she first grabbed Xian Chen's left hand and trotted away in the direction of the Xiao family's main sect. After seeing them leave, Xiao Zhan felt extremely complicated. He and Xiao Tong have known each other for many years. Naturally, we understand Xiao's different character. Now that he is old and has a son, if his brothers are really at war with each other because of things between the younger generations, it will definitely be the most unworthy thing. Fourth elder. Although, our relationship is as close as brothers, but if we hurt the friendship between you and me just because of the fight between the juniors, wouldn't it be a bit unworthy? Xiao Zhan sighed. Although it is true that he is the head of the Xiao family, his success in becoming the head of the Xiao family was indispensable for Xiao Buobu's help. If it weren't for the help of this old brother next to me. Maybe he is just holding the title of elder of the Xiao family in the big Xiao family now. Xiao Butong's face was heavy, and he didn't think like Xiao Zhan did. Alas. Xiao Butong sighed deeply, then closed his eyes and asked, I wonder what the patriarch thinks of what the old man said about one mountain not being able to tolerate two tigers. Is there no room for two tigers in one mountain? If Xiao Butong said it, it would be considered as asking Xiao Zhan's innermost thoughts. He was naturally very willing to let Xian Chen leave the Xiao family. But if that were to happen, he would undoubtedly have to break up with Xiao Butong. The great elder and others walked silently aside, but did not intend to talk. Although they have the supreme status in the Xiao family, they always turn a blind eye when it comes to matters between brothers. If the clan leader minds, then I will let Chener go to Yunlin sect, and as for Xiao Yan, let him go to Canaan College. I think if this is the case, if they meet again in the future, maybe there will be no room for two tigers in this mountain. Yunlin sect? When Xiao Butong mentioned the three words Yunlan zone, Xiao Zhan's originally heavy expression gradually turned ugly. It was as if the scene of Nalan Yanran coming to the Xiao family to break off the engagement was still before her eyes. Nalan Yanran insisted on breaking off the engagement that day because she did not want to marry Xiao Yan, who had a good-for-nothing aura. But it's different now. Xiao Yan has resumed his practice and his talent has returned. Therefore, Xiao Zhan can say with certainty that when Nalan Yanran sees Xiao Yan's talent again, she will definitely regret it. If fourth brother really has this idea, then even if I, Xiao Zhan, don't want this face, I am still willing to write a letter to find a good opportunity for Xian Chen. Xiao Zhan said that at this point, he was indirectly driving Xian Chen away. Xiao Butong took a deep breath and stopped talking to Xiao Zhan too much. After everyone returned to Xiao's house, for some reason, Xiao Zhan suddenly held a banquet. A group of prominent people from the Xiao family were invited. Xiao Butong sat on the left side of Xiao Zhan, but Xiao Yan did not arrive. When the elder noticed that Xiao Yu's eyes were filled with admiration when he looked at Xian Chen, his brows furrowed slightly. Xiao Yu, today is a big day, why don't you invite the third young master to come over? The current great elder obtained the foundation building spiritual liquid at the auction, so he was naturally very willing to speak to Xiao Zhan. Now that he noticed that Xiao Yan was not on the spot, he asked Xiao Yu to call him without hesitation. Xiao Yu didn't expect that his grandfather would ask him to invite Xiao Yan. Anger could not help but appear on his face. Grandpa, I don't want to go, I don't get along with that guy. Xiao Yu complained, her eyes also falling on Xiao Ning who was smiling stupidly at the side. Don't look at me, I don't want to go either. Xiao Ning complained, then picked up a glass of fruit wine and took a sip. There was no other way. Under the gaze of so many people, Xiao Yu had no choice but to move her round and slender legs and reluctantly rushed towards the small courtyard where Xiao Yan was. Xiao Yu, who was burning with anger, looked at the closed door, and the scenes of that day instantly appeared in his mind. If it hadn't been for Xian Chen's sudden appearance, maybe that day, she would really have suffered a loss from Xiao Yan. Bang! Kicking open the door, Xiao Yan, who was resting inside, was so shocked that he sat up from the bed on the spot. Xiao Yan, who looked confused, rubbed his eyes and saw who the other person was, and cursed angrily, "You idiot woman, don't you know you have to knock on the door before entering someone else's room? You idiot woman." Seeing the furious Xiao Yan, Xiao Yu was also slightly stunned, but after reacting, she gritted her silver teeth and then walked towards Xiao Yan with her round and slender legs. "Asshole! I'm going to teach you a lesson today," Xiao Yu scolded, raised his jade leg high and swept it sideways towards Xiao Yan's head. Seeing that Xiao Yu actually wanted to raise her leg to sweep across him, Xiao Yan did not avoid it, and a ferocious smile flashed across his face. Immediately, he suddenly stretched out his hand and swept Xiao Yu forward until his legs were tightly held in his hands. Let go, Xiao Yu couldn't move, and noticed that Xiao Yan couldn't look away from his disgusting eyes, so just as he was about to kick again, he remembered that he couldn't even stand firmly, so how could he attack again? He, it's a pity, there is still another layer, Xiao Yan said with a lewd smile. Looking at Xiao Yu, whose face was ashen, an idea suddenly came to his mind. I saw him retract his arms, and then Xiao Yu's body lost weight and fell hard forward. "Ah!" Xiao Yu exclaimed, and a second later, Xiao Yu actually performed a one-word horse in front of Xiao Yan. Hey! The tight pants were torn instantly. Xiao Yan, with a look of joy on his face, raised his palm, grasped it suddenly, and shouted softly, "Suck the palm. Shout out as you suck your hands." Then there was an extremely powerful suction force. It surged out violently from Xiao Yan's palm. As for Xiao Yu, who fell beside the bed, before she had time to react, she suddenly leaned forward and was directly pulled onto the bed by the suction force erupted by Xiao Yan. He was hugged tightly by Xiao Yan and looked at the other person's dangerous smile. Xiao Yu only felt a little dizzy. A tantalizing flush appeared on her pretty face, and when she realized what she was doing, she immediately began to struggle violently. I don't know what kind of fighting skill Xiao Yan used to be able to suck him in tightly. Xiao Yu, who became angry and embarrassed, cursed angrily, "Xiao Yan, I'm your cousin." However, a sneer appeared on Xiao Yan's face. He took Xiao Yu's hand and turned her over. After turning Xiao Yu over, looking at Xiao Yu's jade back and slender legs, which extended a very nice curve, a dangerous arc appeared at the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth. "What do you want to do?" Xiao Yu became angry with shame. She didn't expect Xiao Yan's power to be so great. However, how could Xiao Yan listen at this moment? With a livid look on his face, he immediately raised his palm and was about to slap it down. However, at this critical moment, suddenly, a sharp sword came in an instant. Then followed by an extremely miserable cry. The silver and sharp sword was nailed straight to the wall. The Strongest Husband of Dopo. Author, Hui Bai Xiong. Chapter 60. Call Out. A dangerous arc appeared at the corner of Xiao Yan's mouth. At the time of Qian Junyi. Suddenly, there was an extremely harsh sound piercing the air. Shots shot out of the door in an instant. Xiao Yan looked up at the sword shadow and broke into a cold sweat. But it was too late to avoid it. As the sharp sword tip passed by in an instant, Xiao Yan's raised palm was instantly pierced by the sudden sword. Ah! Xiao Yan roared with a ferocious expression. After all, this was his first time encountering a sharp sword that penetrated the entire palm of his hand. In the past, he would go to Xiao Suner to cry for minor injuries, but now that he was so seriously injured, he naturally cried so hard that his voice had already broken. Snort. Bang. The door that was originally kicked open by Xiao Yu was also kicked to pieces in an instant. The tattered wooden door was scattered on the floor. Xiao Yu turned her head in panic. When she saw who it was, she immediately jumped off the bed without even thinking. Xiao Yu, who was crying so hard, was held tightly in Suankin's arms. Although it is true that Xiao Yu has the strength of a 3-star fighter, Xiao Yan today is not as simple as before. Xiao Yan, I thought you would be a gentleman, but I didn't expect that you would do such an unworthy thing. Xian Chen was furious, looking at Xiao Yan who was still wailing, and was about to leave with Xiao Yu who was almost being bullied. But suddenly I heard the malicious ridicule from Xiao Yan. Xian Chen. Don't pretend to be a gentleman here. You snatched me from Suner. You took possession of my cousin. You didn't even let go of the elegant concubine from Mitre auction. Do you think I don't know these things? Don't forget. This Xiao family. My father has the final say. And you? You are just the child that Xiao Buobu picked up outside. You have an unclear life experience. Maybe you are just a bastard who was picked up outside. Nima. Xian Chen couldn't bear it anymore and immediately let go of Xiao Yu's arms. Immediately afterwards, it was like stepping on the stars, and the momentum revealed by his whole body only made Xiao Yan feel suffocated. It is simply unbelievable that this kind of oppressive force that makes Xiao Yan extremely frightened could be revealed by Xian Chen. Shut up. Xiao Yan. Do you really think I don't dare to kill you? I bet you don't dare to kill me. The two looked at each other, and the murderous intent revealed in their eyes made Xiao Yu, who was standing at the door, feel a little uneasy. Chen. What happened? However, at this moment, Xiao Butong's voice suddenly came from outside the door. And besides Xiao Butong, he also followed Xiao Zhan and Xiao Yu's biological grandfather, the eldest elder of the Xiao family. Grandpa, Xiao Yu turned around, immediately ran to the great elder's side, and then cried extremely miserably in his arms. Although Xiao Yu has a strong character, in the final analysis, she is just a woman. What's wrong, You are asked to invite Xiao Yan to a banquet? Why are you crying like this? Where is Xian Chen? Yes, Xiao Yu, where is Chen? Didn't he come to find you? Ah! Another miserable voice sounded. Then Xiao Zhan's face instantly became extremely shocked. Just when Xiao Butong and the elder looked confused, Xiao Zhan was already walking towards the house with extremely hasty steps. Xiao Yan. My son. The moment Xiao Zhan stepped into the room, he was shocked when he saw that the veins in Xiao Yan's hands were severed. He immediately attacked Xian Chen who was standing with a sword without even thinking. The furious lion is angry. Xiao Zhan was furious and immediately unleashed the Xiao family's top martial arts. Xian Chen's face was heavy, but he didn't panic when he saw that the other person's face was vaguely gathered into an illusory lion's head. Humph! What a rubbish technique! Let me show you today. What is a skill? Buddha's palm. Boom! Xian Chen shouted loudly, and then he saw a Buddha with golden light all over his body. He raised his palm and slapped Xiao Zhan hard. Slapping his palms together, Xiao Zhan immediately looked panicked. But it was too late, as a figure shot out. Immediately afterwards, Xiao Buobu and others who were outside showed surprise. Cough. Xiao Zhan covered his chest and was in pain. He only felt that his chest was blocked and his throat was sore. Puff. Xiao Zhan, who couldn't bear it any longer, immediately spat blood mist from his mouth with a look of reluctance. When Xiao Buobu and others arrived, his eyes slowly closed, and he didn't wake up. Clan leader, the great elder called with panic on his face. But when Xiao Butong's trembling fingers came to Xiao Zhan's nose, The elder hurriedly asked, "How are you doing? Are you still alive?" "Well, he's still alive, he just suffered serious internal injuries. Even so, even if he wakes up, I'm afraid he won't be able to practice anymore." "What?" Xiao Yu looked at Xiao Zhan lying on the ground in disbelief. She couldn't believe that Xiao Zhan, who had the cultivation of a great fighting master, would be crushed by Xian Chen, who only had the strength of a fighting master. You mean, he was crippled?" The great elder's voice trembled. He was in disbelief. He couldn't believe that this was the strength that a young man could unleash. Not long after, Xian Chen walked out of Xiao Yan's room. He was holding a bloody sword in his hand. When he saw Xiao Butong with a complicated expression, Xian Chen said calmly, "Xiao Butong, you and I are not father and son, recognizing each other earlier, would be just a child's play. Now that Xiao Zhan and Xiao Yan have been deposed, I, Xian Chen, am responsible for all the blame. I also hope that the great elder can have a witness, so that other elders in the clan will not embarrass him." Xiao Butong's eyes were moist. He couldn't believe that in the face of such a big deal, Xian Chen would choose to throw himself out. Recalling the words of the expert's warning, he looked bitter, but he only felt that there were grains of sand in the wind, which fascinated his eyes. But the great elder looked solemn. Although he had known Xian Chen for less than a day, what happened was enough to refresh his knowledge for most of his life. "Xian Chen, this matter, I will investigate it carefully." The great elder spoke word by word, noticing Xiao Yu's torn and tattered clothes, and guessed something. "Then I'll thank you in advance. It's a pity, it seems I can't stay in the Xiao family anymore. Everyone, mountains and rivers meet each other, and we are destined to meet again." "Wow!" Xian Chen just finished speaking. Immediately after him, a pair of jet black wings appeared immediately behind him. Looking at the pair of jet black wings shining in the sun, everyone present looked surprised. "Xiao Yu, you are beautiful, take you out. It's very respectable." After Xian Chen said this, he immediately waved his black wings. With everyone in a state of shock and sadness, he flapped his wings behind his back and flew towards the high altitude. Looking at the black feathers scattered on the ground, Xiao Yu, who was in a daze, picked up one and held it tightly in his hand.